I don't know if you just heard that, but now it sounds like there's a boost leak, which is obviously not related to the radiator at all.
I think when you lose someone, you try to look for them in the places that they've been.
I just got back from the checks and got in the car and I could smell diesel.
I've got a photo of my grandpa in his uniform. Do you know that you're wearing 2 hats?
Excuse the viewers, I'm looking wild and a bit dirty really. I've been up since sun up working on this thing. We put a new radiator in, and then I don't know if you just heard that, but now it sounds like there's a boost leak, which is obviously not related to the radiator at all. But I cannot chase this thing down. Like most things on this ute, it's not going to be catastrophic, it's going to be something silly. I've just got to find it, but it's been doing my head in. I've had all the hot side apart and inspected it for cracks, can't find anything. What I really need to do is get some smoke, put it down the intake and see where it leaks out or something like that. But currently I don't have any smoke in my ute. Don't know where to buy some, so that's where we're at. But remote areas ahead, we are out here in the glorious Outback where I feel absolutely at home. Really not worried about anything that's going to go wrong or could go wrong. We are prepared mechanically. Oh, actually that reminds me, we do have to call and update our recovery cover just from Club 4x4 just to bump it up while we're in these really ridiculously remote places, and that'll keep us on the safe and narrow there. But plenty of water, plenty of food, plenty of everything. I love this prep, I love this stuff, and it feels like we're the only ones out here. We may well be the only ones out here right now, but it is stunning, and I'm going to get back to the drive.
Wearing 2 hats? Did you actually not know?
No. I have so many hats. Like, you guys need to understand that there's hats for like, there's my working hat, and then this is my like sort of everyday hat, but then I have another one of this that's really clean, brand new, and that's my going out hat. And then I got, you know, the Akubra. Sun safety is cool, folks. Sun safety is cool.
I thought that you were just wearing it as like storage to carry it, and then you kept wearing 2, so I was like, does he know he has 2 hats on?
I got up when the sun came up this morning, did my daily vehicle checks, did a whole lot of stuff, alright? It's been a big day already, and it's only 10 o'clock. And now she's making me drive really slowly over corrugations.
I'm not making you do this. You're making me nearly spill my coffee.
Alright, corrugations. You got to get up to speed a bit. That doesn't mean be silly, that means find what works for your rig. Now, the update I gave you guys yesterday would have been on this Ranger and that noise it was making that sounded like a boost leak. And I said I'd had it all apart and I'd inspected it, and I couldn't find any damage. You know, you'd expect like a high-pitched sort of turbo noise to have, well, a split in an intercooler, something obviously wrong with the turbo, bearings, something like that, but it would have been a bit more obvious and it would have been easier to replicate. What happened the other day was, but going into hotter territory, I put in a bigger radiator in here, a 42mm core one. Probably should have done it ages ago. We were never running hot, but I just wanted to be running cooler. What I really wanted, and what you should expect from a big radiator, is that it just won't get as warm when you're putting the engine under heaps of load. So that's what I wanted, and it's worked great. What I also did while I was there was replace a couple of cooling hoses, because we had some that had fractured on the inside and stuff like that, and they were just picked up in daily checks. They presented in the form of swelling. The other thing I changed was the radiator cap. This is a 21 PSI cooling system, and I just wanted to chuck a new one on basically, because I had filled it up with new coolant, as I do coolant flushes pretty regularly, but I'd filled it up with new coolant, and on these ranges there's no overflow bottle. So just wanted to have a cap on there with the pressure system working well to relieve it and get rid of any coolant that we needed to. And I thought, with this many Ks on the clock, that's good preventative maintenance, and also gives us another spare. So all good. What happened then was we went for the test drive, as you always do after work, and that's when the boost leak presented itself, which was, I thought at the time, understandable. I'd had to pull the hoses off to give me access to the area I was working in. So I went back, re-tightened everything, went over it, still no change. Then the other day I pulled it all apart, still no change. And so last night, would you look at that, a puddle in the Outback. So last night I got in there, was going over everything, and I thought, you know what, let's just put the old radiator cap back on and see if that changes anything. And I was explaining this to Jess. Jess, last night I asked her to come over. I said, can you just be one of the boys for a second, please? I just need to go through this and speak mechanically and have somebody hear it and just tell me if it makes sense or not.
By the way, there are female mechanics, putting that out there.
No, I know, but I meant one of the boys, like, because I'd call one of my mates, and I didn't want to, didn't want to do that. I just wanted to just think clearly. So to cut a long story short, replace the radiator cap and then replace the hose clamp on the return line of the overflow bottle, just because I was spinning, I felt it, and I just wasn't happy with that hose clamp. It's one of those compression ones, and I replaced it with a proper screw one, tried and Australian made, all that sort of stuff. That's what we're going with here, just so it works. Would you believe that that has fixed the problem? And let me tell you why that is so insane. Because we were getting turbo sounds, turbo blow-off sounds almost, from pressure through the radiator system. It was like, it sounded like a WRX almost blowing off from going from third to fourth. But there was no, no loss of boost, no other things. And so I guess what I'm telling you guys to do, and what I'm trying to get you guys to see, is that just because you think you've checked everything, check something else. Think really logically about things. For my turbo to have blown the day I put a new radiator in and was on the test drive would have been an absolute freak of nature, and I'm not that cool. So really think, because out here there's no one to help you and you're all on your own. So yeah, no blown turbo, it was a radiator cap. Never ever have I heard that before, had that happen, seen it happen, anything. Wouldn't read about it.
Speaking of being all alone, we are just leaving the Salt Lake that we spent the night at. It was just a free camp, but very pretty at sunset and just very cool to camp next to in general. So a great stop along the way. Had we not stopped there last night, we would have had like a 5.5 hour drive. So today we've got a 3-hour one. We did get a little bit of rain, which has been a nice temperature change because it's been super, super hot and dry, and it's a lot more mild today. So had a good sleep and even a tiny little sleep in, which is nice, but it does mean that the road has puddles, it's a little bit muddier, and we're probably going to roll into our next camp a little bit muddier even though we were already covered in dust and dirt. It really is hard to keep the rigs clean out here in this type of adventuring, but that's okay. When we pulled over Dally Waters, I remember thinking, oh my god, we are the dirtiest rig here, and I didn't understand how. We'd all come from the same places, and yet we were covered in red mud, and everyone else was looking like they had just driven straight out of the Caravan dealership. But Josh takes a lot of pride in keeping the car clean.
It's not just that, mud breaks things, mud ruins everything, I think. And what's actually really interesting, like we saw that puddle, and that was like, you guys probably missed it, but there was a substantial amount of water in that puddle. We have had 2.5 millimeters of rain in the last sort of 12 hours. Absolutely a drop in the ocean, all things considered. But out here, when you're in flat country like we are, 2.5 millimeters of rain can pile up pretty quick. And on a track like this that is bull dust in the dry, well, you wouldn't want to be on it in the real wet, and that's a real consideration you've got to take into account out in these places. Many times have I had to pull over on the side of the road for 1 or 2 days to just let things drain away so that I could get out. And well, last time we did the Oodnadatta, remember that?
Oh my god, the last time we did the Oodnadatta, I'll just tell the story quickly because we don't have any B-roll to overlay or anything and give you a visual detail of what happened, but we were headed to Uluru and we had only a small amount of time to get there, but luckily we were where we were when the rain hit, because we were the last people to probably get on that track before they closed it. We did go to the Pink Roadhouse and ask the locals, because no one knows better than a local about the conditions. And the bloke who was working at the Roadhouse did say, if you guys are going to go, you should go now, because we're going to get a whole lot more rain and they are going to close that track. So we jumped on the track while we were still allowed, and it was slippery. We were only in the ute, so it was okay. There's no way we would have done it with the van on the back. There's no way we could have towed through all of that mud, and if we did, we probably would have picked up, I don't know, 50 kilos adding to the weight of our setup. Because as you know, when you have a van and it's muddy, the car just kicks mud straight back onto the van and it all piles up in the front, and you end up having, I don't know, a 22-foot van when you started with a 19-foot. But anyway, it was an adventure. It was so much fun, and we got to see Uluru in the wet. But that's another reason that I want to go to Uluru again, because when we were there, as you know, there's not a whole lot to do other than, you know, sightseeing things around Uluru. And because of the rain, because of the flooding, everything was cancelled. You know, we weren't doing the camel ride or anything like that, but they cancelled that. A lot of the walks were shut, and of course that nighttime dinner that people do, the Sound of Silence, that was off. So everything was cancelled, but you know, we did what we wanted to do. We pulled up in the car park, we had a coffee, had a look, and it was a really good time. And it was really cool to see it in the wet. It was cool to see the waterfalls flowing down the rock, but I would love to see it in the dry. And I feel like we have a better chance of seeing it in the dry now, because we've just come out of summer. We're only just into autumn, whereas when we were there last time it was winter. But never know, as it started raining and storming last night, Josh was like, what would you do if it rained in Uluru again? And I'm like, well then I would just accept my fate that I'm only going to see Uluru in the wet, because I don't think I'm going to convince Josh to go to Uluru again. I think this is my last trip.
Yeah.
Josh has been there like 10 times.
I've been around and you know, Uluru is a long way out. But
it is a dedication to get to Uluru. It's a commitment to get to Uluru.
But what I will say is that if you ever get there and it's raining, just remember this statistic, folks. 99% of people never get to see it when it's wet. So take that in and really enjoy it. Just like Jess did and made the most of it. I've been fortunate enough to see it in many different conditions, and it's always breathtaking. If you get there and it's raining, just go out, still enjoy it if you can. You definitely got to see it. Definitely don't turn around just because it's wet, unless you're coming on a dirt road and it's dangerous, in which case you're in charge of your safety. Anything worse than covering your van in mud is seeing that a bird has done its morning ablutions on the front of it.
That was there yesterday.
It's not good. They have no respect. I'm gonna go check some wheels.
What are we checking?
Wheel bearings, and then just a walk around. It's a really corrugated road, so just literally anything out of place. Good tip for stuff like this is, like, obviously the van's quite dirty, so if you're looking for things that have fallen off, you're looking for clean patches, you know, like if that fell off there would be a clean patch underneath it, sort of thing. So you're looking for clean patches, you're looking for wet patches, you're looking for anything that doesn't look or sound like it should. So what I'm doing with the wheel bearings there is I'm just putting my finger through that hole and just feeling the temperature. If it's enough to make you flinch, or it should just be slightly warm, like you've been using it. If they're more than that, and you'll notice it because there'll be a difference between your wheels, like, you know, one will be hot and the other one won't be, then you got to do something about that, because otherwise your wheel will fall off.
What do you need to do?
Well, change your wheel bearings, repack your wheel bearings, carry spares, all that sort of stuff. But we're all good. We repack our bearings regularly, so it's just prevention basically. Just because you're out here and there's no one else around, so like just same rules. Be self-sufficient, check your stuff. Prevention is always better than cure. If you find it beforehand, you'll be able to fix it pretty much every time.
What are you checking here?
Just like a quick second dailies check. Just again because the corrugated roads and stuff. The only thing I'm picking up here is that the overflow bottle's just a bit high, but that's because it's been running, so pressure's built up, thermostat's been opened, and like I said, we still are getting the levels right. After the radiator the other day, there was a bit of a hiccup, don't worry. But that'll push out that stuff, and it's all good. Here's my shiny new radiator. It's a beautiful bit of kit, that. Bloody expensive.
How much does it cost?
I'm not talking about it. I shook the canister for the fuel filter. I just got back from the checks and got in the car and I could smell diesel. Well, I should not be smelling diesel. That's why. So it's all good, but pays to go check. Check 4,000. Corrugations, like you just can't trust them. You got no idea whether, you know, half your worldly possessions are just floating around the floor of the caravan or not, because you're not in there. And often you'll get a supremely sort of comfortable ride in here. Well, with this rig you will, because of the suspension that's in it and everything like that, and it's very differently proportioned and weighted and everything to the van. So the van could be rattling 3 or 4 times more than we are right now. You don't really know. So just get out and check.
Oh my gosh, he's not moving. He didn't care.
Let's go. That's what happens when an animal who's thirsty finally finds water.
Guys, how many times can one man look under the bonnet in one 3-hour trip? I reckon we're up to check number 25.
This is ridiculous. We've finally made it into Kingoonya. It is time to go find this caravan park, not that it's going to be hard, and then go to the pub. I love this pub. I've had some really good memories here. It is a little bit overcast and I was looking forward to a bit of, what would you call it, like a sunny Outback pub day, but that's all right, I've got work to do anyway, so yes. And that sign there says it's the last pub for 234 kilometres, so
make the most of it.
We will still go.
It's like a ghost town. There's no one here.
Well, yeah, I'd say there's like, I can't remember, I did ask the publican last time, it was like 20 or less people that live in this area.
Yeah,
so.
there's a caravan park.
Yeah.
Cool.
I did actually know where it was. Oh, you just want me to
fuel first.
drive through the gate?
Oh, didn't see it. I texted them booking it yesterday, so they know we're coming.
I was surprised when you said you booked it.
Why?
Were you thinking it would be?
No, but there was a number, so I thought the courteous thing to do is to text them and book in.
Now, the helpful hint with places like this is like, just don't judge a book by its cover. Like, that's all I'll say. Just come and enjoy these places and chat to people and don't be worried, because it's a bloody life-changing place. Not Kingoonya specifically, but the Outback, and it is so different to what we're used to that you should just get out and embrace it all.
Good morning, guys. We have just left Kingoonya and we are headed Woomera way. So Woomera for me is a little bit of a sentimental place. I grew up hearing about Woomera and stories of Woomera, but I've never had the pleasure of visiting. So the reason that it's sentimental for me is my grandpa was in the United States Air Force and he was sent out to Australia to work at a joint military facility called Nurrungar. It was a joint military venture between Australia and the US, and he was stationed here and they sent over his family with him. So my dad, my two aunties and my grandma, and they were living in the town of Woomera while grandpa worked at Nurrungar. Unfortunately, my grandpa did pass away when he was only 63 years old and I was only 8. So I think when you lose someone, you try to look for them in the places that they've been. And so I'm not expecting like a whole big deal when it comes to this town. I know it's just an outback town, but for me it just feels special because it's not just somewhere that my family lived, but it's the place that my grandpa was stationed, and then following that they moved to Australia and they bought a house in Sydney and then that's where they lived. So it's special to me in that sense, in, you know, that I want to see somewhere that my grandpa has been, but also I know that it was a place that he loved. My grandma said that he extended his initial contract so that he could work there longer, which is funny because she said once the project was up, a lot of the Americans just headed home. They didn't love living in Outback Australia, which is fair enough. It's a big jump from the US. But anyway, we are heading to Roadhouse, Spud's Roadhouse. Gonna grab a coffee, drop the van off. There's a little donation camp next door, not run by the Roadhouse, but next to the Roadhouse. And then it's only like a 5-minute drive into Woomera. So we are gonna head there. I'm gonna take some footage of the town just for my grandma because she wants to see what it looks like now. And my dad wants me to go to where their old house used to be, so I'm gonna try and find that. There's also a park there that the Americans used to celebrate 4th of July at, that my grandma told me about. So bit of like a little nostalgic one for them. But I'll bring you guys along too, and I'll include the footage in here so you can check out Woomera as well. There is a museum in town that we want to get to. Closes at 3, so we'll be there in time. And hopefully a little bit more information about Nurrungar in there and just Woomera as a town, because it's a quirky little cool outback town. I don't think it's somewhere that we would have visited had I not had a sentimental connection with it and wanted to see it, only because we're headed Cooper Pedy way, which we've done before, and it's a little bit of like a jut out to the right if you're looking at the map, and then we're gonna have to head back and then go up to Cooper Pedy. So it's a tiny little bit out of the way but not far, and yeah, I'm excited. So bring you guys along with us.
Turns out the museum has been shut for the summer, so we'll just have to come back to Woomera. It is dangerously close to places like Cooper Pedy and Uluru, which when we get close to, Jess always tries to make me go to. So I'll just think of a different route, but this is a pity. This is stuff that Jess really wanted to see, so we will have to come back. Missed it by that much.
So sad. So obviously it's a shame that the museum is shut. We still have these outdoor things that we can look at, which is pretty cool, but yeah, it's a shame because I know they had some information history pieces which would have been cool to see in person, but like Josh said, we have an excuse to come back, and it's just cool to be here in general, somewhere that I've heard about since I was a kid and now finally visiting and checking out the town that my dad lived in when he was a kid. So this is pretty cool. This carried Australia's first satellite, and it was recovered by some locals in the Simpson Desert. So cool to see this in person and know that it bloody flew into space.
There's a whole lot of it left over too.
Yeah.
You get a bunch for this place. It's scrap metal, you know, like if you were to recycle it. I bet you would.
So they've got this little thing about the Americans being here in Woomera, and I was just looking at this photo, and I've got a photo of my grandpa in his uniform. And that is my grandma, of course, as well. But how cool is that?
Yeah, it's very cool. The whole place is very cool. Also, Woomera darts league, I just read here, hold the record for one of the longest, world record for one of the longest games of darts, which went for 44 hours and 22 minutes. Ridiculous. We're back. Wait, try your hand at following yellow light through the telescope tube below. Press the launch button to start. Look at the ceiling behind me.
Clear launcher, ready for firing.
The ceiling.
10.
These places are hard for Jess to visit because she can't read, so I have to transcribe everything. Do you need help?
So even though that first museum was closed, it was okay because in the visitor centre, as you guys would have just seen, they had a whole bunch of history and information, and it was really, really cool to learn about, you know, all the rocket testing and things out here and all the history of the town and how it came to be. But especially because they had that little section on Nurrungar and the American flag, the American uniforms, and it was just really cool to see. We're currently just having a look at Breen Park, which is where they used to celebrate 4th of July. This stuff, like I said, is sentimental to me. Probably not for everyone else, but this is just somewhere like I've heard about my whole life, and it's really cool to finally be here, to be somewhere that is part of my family history. But yeah, the 4th of July celebrations used to happen in Breen Park, and they had fireworks, and it sounded like a fun time. So we're gonna check it out, and I'm just gonna get a video for my grandma just to show what it looks like now.
But first, fill up water.
There's a water fill up point here as well. So we are going to fill up our tanks. And then there's been a change of plans. Josh has just decided that we're not gonna camp at the Roadhouse tonight. I'll show you guys where we end up.
Yeah, roadhouses are for truckies. I don't know. Well, we've just pulled up at a cemetery to visit what feels like an old mate. Lembedell's ashes were scattered here, and it would be remiss if we didn't come and pay our respects to Australia's last and one of the best explorers, one of my absolute all-time heroes.
We seem to always find ourselves at cemeteries. Sounds really bizarre, but coming to see Lembedale's memorial was one thing we definitely could not miss. As Josh said, he's one of his heroes, and admittedly I didn't know a lot about Lembedale until our recent season with Pat. If you want to see more of what we got up to, check it out on the Channel 10 app or the Mr. 4x4 app. I feel like I'm doing a plug for work right now, but it's season 17 of Pat Callinan's 4x4 Adventures, where we visited one of Lembedale's plaques, and I learnt a lot about Lembedale on that trip, so it's pretty special for me to be here as well. So we are at Andamuka, don't know how to say it. Is it Andamuka?
Andamuka? Yeah, it must be.
We are there for the night. We've just pulled up to a donation camp, but there are power boxes here, so we're going to be able to run the aircon, which is great. Surprise, surprise, we're the only people here. Guess this is off season. But it wasn't too far out of Woomera, maybe like 100 and something kilometers, and it's such a cool place here. It reminds me a lot of Cooper, but we'll show you guys around. We're just gonna set up the caravan and then I'll go for a little walk around. There's a public noodling area just up there, so imagine I found some opals while we were here. That would be super cool. I love mining towns. I don't know what it is. I don't have like any mining history or any reason that I am drawn to them. I guess because they're just so quirky and different and so cool. Honestly, this is why Josh and I love the Outback, because it's just like going to another country almost. It's so different and it's so cool. And like Josh said, don't ever judge a book by its cover. Like, you know, Kingoonya last night you could look at and just drive straight through, but some great locals, a nice little pub, and just a cool experience. So this is all part of traveling Australia, is experiencing all of these weird and wonderful places, and honestly I just love it. If it wasn't so hot, I would spend all my time in the Outback.